All right, welcome to episode 68, the Duole podcast. I am Stuart Anderson. Just a short introduction here before we hear from Chris Johnston of TBD. Thankful for Chris as he talks about his cycling journey and why cycling ticks off so many boxes for him. He's got incredible perspective that we can all learn from. Just a great example and mentor. And thankful for Chris, his friendship, and especially all those TBD guys. They are so good. Love riding with them and love connecting with them in so many ways. So big shout out to Chris. Hopefully we'll have some more episodes coming up with the TBD guys, and as they talk about the start of their club and how they train for LOTOJA and how they just keep that stoke so high. These guys train so hard. So hopefully you enjoy this episode with Chris. A lot of great pearls in here. Also, Team Store is open for 2023. Both red and black kits are available. We're grateful for Duole and all they do for us. Thankful for the designs and all the awesome things that they provide our team from the gear perspective. Team fees should be paid on the Team Shopify account before you start ordering kits. $100 team fee this year, which goes towards team camp, as well as our big team event in August, the Canyons Challenge Ride that we're sponsoring, which benefits the Wheels of Justice charity. So that's exciting. Grateful to have the Team Store open, and big thanks to Duole. All right, enjoy this episode with Chris. Big thanks to him and Jake for spending the time to be on here. All right, enjoy. Greetings, everyone. Well, thank you for joining us. Stuart Anderson here, joined by Jake Cook. Jake.
Hello. Hello.
Greetings. We're joined from another time zone, from California. Beautiful. Is it sunny California today, Chris?
It's been sunny, you guys, but we've had some really adverse weather. So
was it 52? Cool. You had to put thermals on today when you rode?
Yeah, it's been dipping below 50. So it's been really brutal.
We're going to need some toe warmers. Chris Johnston joining us from TBD. Do we say just from TBD? How would you like the proper announcement? Outdoor Bro. What's the?
Yeah, I mean, I think just TBD racing. TBD is good. Just TBD.
TBD racing. That is
the team as the TBD guy.
That is where that's where the forces really came together. If you don't know, our team, I call you guys a sister club. Is that good? Yeah, sister
we do the
club.
same to you.
It's like me, Duole, but in another state. They literally are brothers. We mirror the clubs in a lot of ways, which is super fun. If you don't know TBD, they come to team camp. We are always racing with them or seeing them at events. And Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, many TBDers are actually here in Utah as well.
Yeah, quite a few. We're probably a 60-40 split, 70-30, something like that.
Yeah. Many up in the Heber Valley area, beautiful area. So grateful to have you on. We thought it'd be fun to explore Chris's background, who he is, very intriguing in the bike industry, as well as get some information on TBD if you are in the dark there of who they are and why they come to camp. Does that sound good?
Sounds great. Let's do it.
I'm just so grateful to be here with Chris. Chris is such a good friend, and over the past couple of years, gotten to really know him, and just I've been super excited about this podcast. And those who have not if you're not joining on the YouTube channel, you've got to see Chris's background. It's super famous. It's got the S-Works box back there. We're gonna dive into it, but just super grateful for Chris. Love this dude, and hope you all can take a listen for this podcast. So
nice.
Thank you guys. You guys are incredibly kind.
So Chris is coming to us from, do we say Newport Beach? Fun fact about Chris and I, somewhere we started sharing locations. One of my most favorite things to do if you don't know about me. I love to collect people's locations, like my favorite thing ever.
I'm glad I'm not the only one.
Yeah, it's so fun. So I see Chris in Costa Mesa. I see him at his house every day. I check where he is. Very fun. TBD, we always race with them at LOTOJA. Like I said, we've gone to their climbing camp a few times. Very fun. And then they come to our St. George camp. Chris married with two beautiful girls, currently living in Costa Mesa. He'll hit probably that 10,000 miles is not too far off for you. No, maybe.
I don't think so. I've dialed it back a bit, guys.
Okay. He's dialed it back. We're looking at 350,000 vert. That's commendable. I mean, it's good. It's good vert. There was a time where Jake and I thought maybe 1 million was possible. I don't know.
In 1 year?
In 1 year. Yeah. Million. We figured 4,000 vert per ride on average would get that done.
Wow.
We've came close though. We've got about 700, haven't we? I think
750. We're close.
So, but 350 for Cali is
350. Very good.
That's legit.
That's all the Utah riding, really.
Yeah. multiple podiums at LOTOJA for Chris, which is very commendable. If you follow his Instagram page, his life is filled with sprinter van adventures. Hopefully we can talk more about how that works. Very successful YouTube channel with over 5,600 subscribers, and commendable, Chris. Lots of fun comments in your YouTube comments. People are very engaged with your YouTube channel, which is very fun. Yeah, it's good. Very skilled photographer. And if you don't follow his Instagram page, like I said, you are missing out. One of the videos he recently posted was he's owned 15 bikes in the last 10 years. Is that correct?
That's it. I think it's 16 now.
Oh yeah, the orange epics in the family now.
Yeah,
we got to dig into that. So I told Chris in our little introduction here that he wrote that my father has a very famous saying that there's two types of men in this world. There's dudes you invite to a barbecue, and then there's dudes you don't invite to a barbecue. And Chris is very much a barbecue man. You, once you're around him, you want to hang out, you want to share stories, and you just want him by your side. He's personal, fun, wise, and if you've ever ridden with him, he takes big pulls, which is really fun to be behind. So welcome to the show, Chris. Grateful to have you.
Thank you. It's a very kind intro. Thanks, guys. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Hey, maybe tell us a little bit about just yourself, background, history, who you are. Is that good? Start there.
Yeah, for sure. So 37, here in Costa Mesa, born in Southern California, born in Long Beach, which is about 20 miles north of here. Grew up inland about 45 minutes or so, like Temecula area. I don't know. Some people know where that's at. Graduated high school 2003 and went to Cal State Fullerton after that. So spent some time there, served a 2-year service mission for my church from 2005 to 2007. So lived in South America during that time. And then, came back, married my wife in 2009. And we've got 2 young girls, 5 and 6, soon to be 7. And like just kind of living the dream. Been riding bikes for 10 years, almost 11 years now. And it's been a blast. Like,
athletic as a child, Chris? Were you
so I grew up playing ice hockey. That was a sport that I played. My dad was like a huge hockey fan, which is bizarre, right, for Southern California, because I think there were like 2 ice rinks within like 2 hours of my house. And so my dad, being like a huge Kings fan ever since he was a kid, he's like, all right, you're going to play hockey. So played roller hockey for a few years and then transitioned over to ice hockey. And then at some point I just really enjoyed like the whole like skate, snowboard, wakeboard scene. And for where I grew up, and I was trying to think of a comparison, it's probably comparable to like Heber for you guys, right? Like there's a lake nearby, you can get to mountains, fairly quickly. And so, graduating high school in 2003, I think that whole like action sports world was just kind of starting to take off. So I spent a lot of time skateboarding as a kid, snowboarding a lot. That was probably what I did the most. Like in the winter, we'd go up 60, 70 days a year and snowboard, which was a ton of fun. And we would do the same wakeboarding. So that's kind of where my athletics are. Didn't do a lot of team sports other than, playing hockey when I was super young.
I mean, I've scrolled all the way back into your Instagram, like picture 1. I don't know if you guys have ever done that. I've seen some triathlons in there. Is that true?
Yes. I did have a tri-curious phase for a couple years. And that was kind of my introduction to cycling. I had a friend who was doing triathlons, and I never really loved all 3 sports. Like I always loved riding bikes. I thought swimming was kind of cool. I was terrible at it. I thought riding bikes was really fun. And I one time felt like running was actually enjoyable, but that was like 1 out of 100 times that I went out and ran. The other 99, like I just hated it. But for whatever reason, for probably like 2 or 3 years, I just did triathlons, which consisted of like the Oceanside half Ironman and like the St. George half Ironman. But I never really loved it. So yeah, thank you. I'd forgotten about that. Thanks for bringing that up.
I saw an Arrow helmet back there.
Oh gosh.
All right. So you had mentioned that cycling does that. It checks all the boxes for you. Maybe you could talk about that for a minute.
Yeah. So for me, we can probably get into this later too, but like I'm super protective of my time. And so, I'm not a guy that's going to go and hang out with the guys on a Friday night or a Thursday night or Saturday night. Like that's just not me. Right. Like I prefer to spend my time with my family. And so cycling for me is an opportunity to, one, get up and get some exercise, be competitive. It's a social thing for me. Again, I don't feel the need to go out on a Friday night and hang out with, guys, because I hung out with guys on Tuesday morning and Thursday morning and Saturday morning as we were kind of beating each other up. And it's just one of those things that really checks all the boxes. And I think, because it checks all those boxes, it's incredibly efficient. I mean, if I go out for 60, 90, 120 minutes during the week, my day is better. I come home, I'm like a better father to my kids. I'm a better husband because I've like accomplished something big in the morning. And it's amazing. It's a fantastic sport. That makes sense.
It does. Excellent answer. Jake, I think you feel the same way, don't you?
Oh, 100%. I mean, that's, that's that morning time in the morning is so special. Right. And, I mean, there's, I just, like Chris said, when you come home to, after working out, dude, you just feel replenished and you feel ready. Like you can give your family some time and ready to move on for the day. So, no, I 100% agree. That time in the morning is so special.
Yeah. That's why these dark hours for us, Jake, are hard.
Oh, so hard.
It's brutal. And Zwift only fills that cup like halfway. It's like a taste.
Yeah. It's tough.
Hey, you had mentioned, Chris, that this really cool article which you sent over about you can pick two. Can you talk more about that? That was really fascinating.
For sure. So if you guys are familiar with the author, Ryan Holiday, he does like the Daily Stoic podcast. He's written like a ton of books. I've probably read all of them. I have them all on my Audible account. He shares a story of like he lives like outside of Austin, Texas, and he moved there. And there's this other author there named Austin Kleon. And as Austin Kleon was kind of out there, kind of showing Ryan around, he's like, look, when you're out here, there's a ton of stuff to do. And you kind of have to categorize things, and you've got work, you've got family, and you've got scene. You can only pick two. And that's something that for me has always resonated quite a bit. And it ties into why I think cycling is incredible, especially, when you've got friends that you can ride with in the mornings and stuff. I think when you try to do all three, your life just becomes completely out of whack and it's totally out of balance. And in my professional life, I've always felt that way, that I had time for work and family. But as soon as like the scene, and by scene, I mean like, after work stuff, going on trips, traveling, hanging out with the boys, like all that kind of stuff. When you try to squeeze all that into a week, let's say, I've just never felt that it really provides any kind of balance. And so I think you have to pick two. If you have work and family, you don't have time for scene. And if you have scene and work, I think your family suffers. And so for me, I like, of course, it's always fun to be in the scene every once in a while. It's always fun to be out and doing stuff like that. But for me, it's typically work and family. And if I can squeeze some other stuff in there occasionally, great. But that was an article that I had read that, kind of helped me kind of understand some expectations and help me kind of position my life in a way that made a lot of sense. So
it's a really cool article. I'm going to post it in the show notes. Yeah. Very intrigued. Made me think a lot. I mean, everybody's fighting for time.
Yeah.
I mean, especially as you try to throw in an event or like a race.
Right.
and riding goes beyond like, well, I want to get out and have fun and be with friends. Now it's like, no, I want to win. So I got to train. So, hey, let's talk about TBD for just a sec. I'd love for you to introduce the team.
Yeah.
Could you just talk about this, who they are, how
sure.
you got connected? Yeah. And then the culture of your squad, like how they work. Okay.
Yeah. So, I'm kind of a newer guy to the team. The team really has been around for probably 20 years. I mean, some of these guys go back friendship wise for years. Bob Emmett, who's up in Heber now, he started riding bikes years ago. He was down here in Irvine. And so, some of these guys go way, way back. The team consists of a handful of guys that are down here, maybe 20, 25 guys. And then there are probably 10 or 15, official TBD guys. There's no real official initiation or anything that are out in Utah area, anywhere from Heber out to like Daybreak. One of the guys we race with lives out there now. And so they're kind of all over, but the team's, it's really cool. I used to ride bikes a lot alone, and I got connected to the team through Mike Cunningham, who you guys know. And if you guys who are listening don't know Mike Cunningham, I I hope that you get to meet him someday and just spend 15 minutes with Mike, because dude, it's just hilarious, right? So Mike moved into my neighborhood, and Mike rode bikes. And so instantly we kind of connected on that front. And he was kind of riding with, some random groups on Saturdays and stuff. And somehow he connected with Nate Kazare, because they went to high school together. They went to the same high school, and they went and rode bikes together. And, so Mike came back to me and he's like, dude, you got to come ride with these guys. Like, they're all really good guys. They do this race called LOTOJA. And I had heard about LOTOJA, and I just thought it was like this insane thing, which it is. I was like, oh, that sounds really cool. So like the next Saturday, I went with Mike to the Oak Creek Elementary parking lot, which is where they all meet. And that's when I met Shane. That's when I met Tate. That's when I met Tyson, Jordan, all these guys who are kind of staples of the group, who are always there, right? And again, these guys have been riding together for 5-10 years prior to me ever showing up. But the group is unique in that, everyone is kind of friends first. And one of the things I remember from one of the first rides is that there was somebody who was kind of falling behind, and he was like, dude, just go ahead. Like, go ahead. I'll just roll back solo. And I don't remember who it was, but somebody just went back and rode with him. And, fast forward 5 years that I've been riding with these guys, that happens all the time. And that's not to say that there's always somebody who's behind. It's just that there's always somebody who's willing to stay back with someone. If somebody's having an off day or they're just not feeling it, like, the friendship is what matters. And the friendship is the primary focus of this group. And so, as much as somebody may have some insane training day on the calendar, dude, if your buddies are having a rough day, the guys from TBD, or at least a couple of them, are going to hang back with you, so you're not solo, And I think that the friendships are amazing. I'm kind of a younger guy in the squad. I feel like many times in my life, I've been like a boy amongst men. And again, this is one of those. Again, a lot of these guys are 10, 15 years older than me. And, so there's a lot of like life lessons that are shared too, whether they're formal or informal. But some of the greatest conversations that I've had as I've, been a new father, or, trying to figure out things with work and business, they've happened on bikes with these guys. And so it's like this all-encompassing group where you're not just going out and killing each other on a Saturday. You're also like learning how to be like a better husband, better father, better friend. And that's incredible to me. And it's something that I never thought that you could have in a bike group. But dude, these guys do it. I mean, they're just phenomenal individuals as well as athletes.
I agree. And if you didn't know, man, I'm sure there's like a TBD Hall of Fame or something going on. But I mean, Shane won his category this year in LOTOJA.
Yeah.
Jim, he won again his category. And so like me, Duole puts a lot of love into LOTOJA. It's like, that's a fun, I would say TBD, man, you guys might even take it up a notch above us. Where does that come from? Like, who is the instigator of this culture?
Gosh, I think it's deeply rooted. If you go back even further to Bob Emmett, who you guys might have met when you rode with us this summer at our camp. I mean, Bob is kind of like Bob should be running for like the mayor of Heber, right? I mean, he's like that guy who knows everybody. He's lively. He's excited. He's the guy who calls up, what's the road out there that we
the Red Ledges?
Red Ledges, yes, is one. I feel like I can roll up to Red Ledges any time of the year. And
Wolf Creek, the Wolf Creek thing.
Wolf Creek too, yes. And then wherever the gas station was that we went one day. Is it Hana? Is that a place?
Doesn't he like get pies for you guys, like pre-order pies or something like that? Yeah,
pre-orders pies. They're like 30 hot dogs on the rollers when we roll up to this place. And like, he's probably on a first name basis with all of these people. So like the excitement and the stoke, whatever you want to call it, I think originates from Bob, who is like the ultimate hype man and like the ultimate champion of every single guy on the team. Like, he'd probably be embarrassed if I told the story, but he's the guy who, similar to what we were talking about with like the Find My Friends thing, somewhere along the way, like I added Bob on Find My Friends so he could see me. And, he sees my wife during LOTOJA as they're both doing support for different people. And he goes, Casey, I just want to say, it's so cool. most people delete me from Find My Friends, but Chris left me on there. And I think it's so cool to watch and see where Chris is. But like, he's just genuinely excited about like everything that's going on in his friends. And he's just a truly like a good individual. And so I think the excitement for LOTOJA starts there. And,
cool.
I don't know all of the back history with LOTOJA in the group, but I do know that there was a year, I think it was 2017, because it was one of the years that I was considering riding, but my wife she was due like, I think the end of September. And so LOTOJA just didn't work out that year for me. And so my first LOTOJA wasn't until 2018, but there was a tailwind year where everybody got these like incredible times. It was like the first time that like a ton of guys, broke 10 hours, but then a lot of guys were like 9:20, 9:15, 9:16, something that, 12 and 24 months prior hadn't really even been on the radar. So then all of a sudden everything just like jumped up a notch, and we went into 2018, 2019, 2020, and everybody's like, dude, we're now going to like race this thing instead of just like trying to, break 10 hours. And so, yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but like the excitement, it's a contagious excitement, and it's something that everybody shares in, and it's fun. I mean, we talk about that, like LOTOJA is just one race day out of 250 or so training days leading up to that point in the year. But those 250 days that, we ride together, train together, are like a total blast too, So yeah, I think that's where the excitement comes from.
Nice. I mean, you've had some really successful race days, those LOTOJA race days. And I'm interested to hear how you, with your previous advice of picking two, how does a guy like you, I mean, you did extremely well. How do you look at your last 3 years participating in that event, how you've trained, the experiences you've had, and then the result that you got?
Yeah. So the first time we did we got on the podium was in 2020, and we went 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
And that was kind of a unique year because, you had all the COVID stuff going on and pandemic. And I know it was a bit different out there in Utah, but out here in California, like things were pretty shut down. Yeah. I mean, I remember there was a Saturday in probably spring of 2020 when I was just riding with Shane, because you had to be like, socially monogamous, and you couldn't ride with anybody else. And so it was like, all right, I guess I'm gonna ride with Shane. And so like, we're riding up these canyons, and there are people holding signs that are like, stay out of our canyon, like go home. It's a weird time. But what it allowed is that it allowed for us to kind of like just train a bunch, because everybody was home. Nobody was traveling. And so that was the first year that I started to kind of get into a rhythm of, how to train for what worked for me. And I think the biggest thing was, one, like getting started early in the year and kind of establishing somewhat of a base. And I had bought a smart trainer years prior, but I didn't really use it probably to the full extent that I could have. I was doing like Sufferfest. I tried Zwift, and it just didn't really do it for me. And then I switched over to Trainer Road and did like, one of those 2-part foundational plans. So it's like a 6-week base, step 1, and then another 6-week base. So it's like a 12-week base. And I felt like that really helped me get on like a pretty good trajectory for the year. And I also realized that with a smart trainer, I could wake up at 5 or 5:15, and I could be done by 7 o'clock in the morning. And if I was done by 7 o'clock in the morning, I was done before my kids ever got out of bed. And so I was able to kind of train in this kind of like vacuum time where nobody was really going to bother me. It was kind of my time. And yeah, I just felt like the consistency of having, people to train with all the time, having a good plan, having a schedule dialed in, like really worked for me. So nice. 2020, we went 1, 2, 3. We got really lucky. We raced against some like incredible guys who like Todd and those guys raced with the following year. David Benyon is one, and he's just like an absolute beast. We also got a little bit lucky. We I don't know how deep you want me to go into this story, but
we want keep going.
So 2020, we rolled up to the start line. I had kind of known, I had like a mutual friend with some of these guys. And so I had messaged him prior to the race, and I said, hey, we got a mutual friend in this guy. Like, what are you guys thinking for the race? And, they were like super nonchalant about it, but these guys were like animals. They live up in the Bay Area. Some of them ride with your guy who now lives up there. I forget his name.
Taylor Cannon.
Yes. Yeah. So he rides with them, if that gives you any kind of like level of how gnarly these guys are. And so we roll up to the start with these guys, and dude, just like right from the gun, they were fast. And then we got into Strawberry, and they like pushed the pace. And then we got into the false flat in Strawberry, and they tried to break up the group, which they did a fantastic job. So we ended up rolling over with, 15 guys or so over Strawberry, and we got to Salt River, and I think they had 3 of them. Maybe it was 4. Let's call it 3. So they had one guy kind of set a screen as we were going up Salt River. So he got to the front to kind of like take a pull, slowed everybody down, and then the other 2 took off. And so they take off and they go over Salt River before we do. And it takes us like 82 miles to catch these guys. We catch the one guy who set the screen. He kind of got dropped pretty quick going over Salt River. But the other 2 guys, I think we caught the second place guy. His name was Derek. We caught Derek at, I don't know, we'll call it like mile 180. Caught Derek, rode with him for a little while. And then, so this means that David was off the front solo, right?
Right.
And so finally we catch David. He had gotten to like Hoback Junction or one of those spots, and he's just off to the side of the road with a flat tire. He had gone solo off the front and unfortunately got a flat tire. So we got lucky. And we went 1, 2, 3 that year. I mean, we still pushed the pace. I rode with Steve and Jim, who those guys are animals, and they still raced the rest of that race as if those guys were somehow going to catch us. I got dropped 3 times from Hoback to the end by my own guys, and then had to like claw my way back. But I mean, in their defense, like they were right to keep racing, right? Yeah. So that was 2020. 2021, like executed a similar plan. Trained early in the mornings, had like a really good base that I developed probably in the first quarter of the year. And then that year we got split a little bit, and we had a front group with like Steve Lowe and a couple other guys, because we were a mixed 4-5 group that year.
Yeah.
And we were the chase group. So we went 2, 4, and 5. I took 5th that year. Thank goodness for the wide podium. And then this last year, so September, a couple months ago, we went, what did we do?
Was it a 1, 2,
1, 3, 4?
1, 3, 4.
1, 3, 4. I think that's what it was.
Yeah.
And yeah, this year was kind of funky. We had a really good group of 7. Again, 3rd year in a row racing with Jim Yacoy and Steve Lowe, and we went over Salt River, and there were only 4 of us. And this poor guy, Byland, I forget his first name, but his cousin is my friend Brett, and we rolled over Salt River, 4 of us. So now we're like a lead group of 4, so we're kind of like guaranteed a podium spot unless something catastrophic happens. And we let Byland go off the front for what we say is going to be like 2 or 3 miles, right? Like we'll catch him. Yeah, give him like 5 miles. Do we let the guy sit out there? I feel so bad. We let him sit out there solo for 30 miles.
Oh my goodness.
Well, we just kind of like slowly inched our way towards him.
Rude.
And we had planned to catch him on like some kind of like a little bit of a descent where we could just fly past him so he couldn't catch on. And there just wasn't an opportunity. We didn't really plan it that well. So we finally got to Afton, and he just waited for us in the feed zone. He's like, "You guys left me to cook out there for the last 30 miles."
Yep.
Like, what the
That's
hell?
what you get for not having a teammate, bro.
Right, exactly. But he was like the nicest guy. And then we totally kind of fumbled the sprint. And if you look at the replay of that sprint, you'll see that Jim is like sitting up as he crosses the finish line.
Yeah.
Because we were going to go Steve 1, me 2, Jim 3rd, and then Byland was going to go 4th, I assume. But he was smart, read the situation well, went around to the right. We all went left, and like it just, yeah. But whatever. I mean, Jim won, so we were stoked about that. Had we gotten 2nd, like I think we all would have been really distraught. But it was a super fun year of racing. So we've gotten lucky the last few years.
Very cool. Will you do it again?
I would not call it lucky. You guys plan. If there's any team that plans and prepares for LOTOJA, it's TBD.
Yeah,
I mean,
real.
Yeah. We try to like, incorporate a little bit of the team aspect into it and try to incorporate some team tactics in there, because prior to that, it was like, yeah, dude, just make it over Salt River with the leaders and then just hang on. And I was like, there's got to be some other things that we can do. If we have 7 guys rolling up to the start line, like there's some things that we can do. And so, not to give away any of the secrets that have worked.
No, but you guys train that way. I mean, I've ridden with you guys. Stu's ridden with you guys, and Cali, and you guys train that way. I mean, when you guys are riding down south at Dana Point, I mean, you guys are in a peloton. You're like, hey, we're taking, a minute pulls. I mean, you guys are you guys are simulating this whole thing just to like Hoback or just to like Strawberry Climb. I mean, it's the real deal. So
thank you. Yeah, I mean, we don't have the climbs quite like you guys, and we don't have the elevation. So a lot of times we will try to create a route that is, call it fairly flat for the first 40 miles.
Sure.
And then we'll end up at Newport Coast, which you guys know, and that'll turn into like a 20-minute climb to the top. And then we'll drop down and go into Laguna Canyon. And so we try to kind of simulate it as best as we can.
Smart.
But inevitably you guys kick our butts as soon as we get to elevation. So we'll try to figure that out.
Hey, biggest lessons learned from doing that race. What do you love about it?
Man, that race to me is like always going to be on the calendar, because I feel like I learned so much about myself just from, having it on the calendar, one, and kind of pushing myself for 9 months out of the year. But then I think you learn like what you're capable of. If you had asked me 10 years ago if I thought I could do a 200-mile race, I would have told you like, nah, that's crazy, right? But now I go into it like understanding what my body's capable of, understanding a lot more about how I work, how I mentally can push through things. So LOTOJA, I feel like is a one-day event, but the things that you learn about yourself, about, what you can do, it overflows and spills into other aspects of your life. And so the lessons learned there just carry over into business and family and lessons to your kids and stuff like that. So
yeah,
that's one of the reasons I love it. I mean, you guys know LOTOJA is a race where you have to dig deep. And there have oddly been times where I've been out there and I've been like emotional, right? Because you are drawing strength from things that you wouldn't normally even think about, because you're not pushing yourself to that kind of a level. And when you're averaging 220 watts or 240 watts, whatever it is for 10 hours, it's like, dude, you're thinking about stuff, right? Like, you guys know my dad passed away in June of this year. And so you push yourself to a point, or at least I did this year, where all of a sudden, like, I'm drawing strength upon like that experience that I had. Right. And thinking about the battles and the struggles that he went through and telling myself like, dude, you think this is bad? Like you can get through this. Right. And, stuff like that, I think, is really incredible. And I've had friends, on the team who have had like, almost like a spiritual experience. I know that might be kind of cheesy, but almost like a spiritual experience from just racing LOTOJA. And I think that's what makes it so special. And that's why it's just on the calendar, and it will always be on the calendar.
I love that.
So good.
That's tough, Chris, losing your dad. Obviously we saw it happen this year, but man, I agree. Finding that strength from something else when that day gets dark, because it inevitably will get dark.
Yes, for sure.
Hey, if this is a good transition, because the reason I asked Chris those questions is he runs this YouTube channel, and he actually did like a breakdown of his day, of his LOTOJA day, which is super cool to watch, what he learned and how the day went. And maybe you could talk a little bit about that, the channel, and why it was created, what it is, and what you post.
Yeah. Let me add just one more point on the LOTOJA thing. And that is that I think, the other thing I've learned too is that LOTOJA is just a 200-mile bike ride. And I think you've got to sometimes simplify it, and you can't prepare for every situation. I mean, if you're the guy who's carrying 4 inner tubes because you think you might get 4 flats throughout the day and you have to finish, like, your race is kind of already over, And so I think you have to think practically about the race and go, okay, I'm going to put a new set of tires on. I'm going to tune my equipment to the best that it can possibly be. And there are a lot of things that are out of my control. And so I think that's what also like kind of takes a little bit of the pressure off of LOTOJA and makes it more enjoyable, in my opinion. First couple of years, I tried to prepare for everything, right? And it was like my triathlon. I remember going to triathlon and I've got like 10 goos and like Cliff bars and all these things in my back pockets. So I could do like an 8-hour half Ironman, right? And like, what you realize is like, you don't need any of that stuff. Like, you just kind of need to focus and enjoy the moment. So anyways, that's my last point about LOTOJA for now. But yeah, so the YouTube channel started because I had this Sprinter van, and I think it'll be what's the date today? Today's the 9th. It's like tomorrow that we've had this thing for 2 years. And so if you guys own homes, you know what it's like when you're like remodeling something or building something out, inevitably you go like over budget on stuff. And so I had the Sprinter van and we bought it. And then we started to kind of look at the budget of what it was going to cost to build. And it was like way beyond what I ever thought. We had a guy here who was doing Sprinter van renovations, converting them into like camper vans from like just a shell. And I just happened to talk to him like on a Thursday night. And I was like, hey, dude, what do you think it would cost to like build something out, super basic, just for me and my family? And he goes, you could probably do it for like, 15 grand or something. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Like that's a number I could probably work with. That sounds awesome. So like the next day, I scour the internet trying to find one of these vans. And then 3 days later, I'm like on a plane to Phoenix to buy the van and bring it back. So then I roll up to the parking lot with the van, 4 days later. And I was like, all right, dude, I got it. Let's do it. 15 grand. And he's like, well, I mean, that's for like the basic thing, right?
A single bench.
Basically to like make sure that it's not just like aluminum walls, So I'm like, shoot, okay, well, this thing's like now going to be way over budget, right? And I also felt like as I was going through the process of finding a van as well as outfitting a van, that there just wasn't like really practical information out there. There was information from these guys that were like the hardcore overland guys that were like taking their sprinters and like, basically taking them on like the Rubicon Trail and like just off-roading the heck out of these things. And then you had guys who were like also swinging hammers and cutting holes. And like, I didn't identify with either of these groups. So I'm like making decisions about how to outfit this van. And there just really wasn't anyone that I could relate to. And so I thought, it would be interesting to start a channel just based around my decision process as I've built out a spreadsheet on how to build out this van. And so that was kind of how it started. It started as like, hey, there could be a need for something like this. Of course, there was like a monetization aspect to it, but as a year later, 2 years later, if you understand the metrics of YouTube, like, it'll take me 5 more decades to pay off the van. But like, that's kind of how it started, as I saw a need. And I think that need has kind of translated, I think, also into cycling, because that's kind of, a little bit of my story as well, is like, you have all these guys who are like racing bikes, who are like people that I can't relate to. They're not people that I ride with. I mean, they're committable athletes, and like, dude, I have the utmost respect for them. But as like a normal dude, we're feeling different things on a bike, and so that's kind of how the channel started, and it's kind of transitioned and snaked a little bit along the way.
Very cool. I mean, some of the titles that you'll find on there, how he built the perfect do-it-all bike, the new Crux, the dream bike build, the S-Works Athos, best gravel bike shoes, road, mountain, or gravel bike, 3 things I wish I'd known before considering buying. You do stuff, like sprinters, helmets, shoes, tires, bikes, races. You even do some how to performs, bike computers. I watched a video today about bearings. I mean, it's deep, dude.
Yeah.
So very cool. It's
thank you.
And it's really well produced. If you're not following the channel, I'll certainly link it in the notes, but very fun.
Thanks, dude.
So cool.
Yeah. It's
Jake, any comment on Outdoor Bros YouTube channel?
No, I absolutely love it. I mean, anyone that like ask me if I'm like a good, like, I can talk shop, right? But I'm not gonna lie, my secret of my talk shop is Chris's Instagram.
Exactly.
So I mean, anybody who's like, hey, what do you think of this helmet? Or hey, what do you think of the Crux or this? I'm like, here you go. Here's a link to this Outdoor Bros thing. He's got it dialed. Like, you should listen to him. And so I take no credit for all my knowledge. It all comes from Chris and his stuff. So it's seriously is one of the coolest pages, and so much detail, so much insight on all the bike gear and just the industry. So just give it a follow and listen if you have any questions. It's so cool.
Oh, thank you guys. That's really kind. Yeah. It's been a really fun, like, side project. I tell myself I'm going to do it for like 1 day a week. Right. So script, film.
I want more.
And be done. Yeah. I wish I could devote more time to it, but until it really makes sense. Like, it's 1 day a week, and it's 1 video a week. And it's been a really fun process. If nothing else, like, I learned how to edit. I figured out audio. I mean, for the first 10 videos, if you scroll real deep in those videos, dude, I had the microphone plugged into the headphone jack for the first 10 videos. Right. So like, I'm editing this and like the audio is terrible. And I'm like, dude, this microphone sucks. Like, I'm going to send it back to Amazon, but I just had it plugged into the wrong port. So, it's one of those things that, like, it is a slow build thing. I'm not Logan or Jake Paul. Right. So I'm not going to like blow up with some insane viral video or anything like that, but it's been really cool, and connecting with people in, the bike community and people who are just genuinely like curious about bikes it's been awesome. I mean, I've had endless conversations about Cruxes and about people's different builds and stuff like that. And dude, I mean, the simple idea that I have, like, people have like done stuff that is way, way, way cooler, and, people are stoked. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. The funnest part about it is, and you say it at the beginning of every video, you're not sponsored. No one's paying you to do them. You know, it's like, and you always say, I'm just a regular guy with a 9-to-5 job.
Smashing the pedals.
And that's fun. I think that's the coolest part.
Thank you. Yeah. I try to keep it very normal. You know, I try to keep it like a conversation as if we were on a group ride and like, you know, Jake's like, hey, what do you think of the Prevail versus the Evade? I'm like, well, let me tell you, you know, or what do you think about these ceramic variants? Like, well, you know, maybe it would not be the best bang for your buck, but it is something that you can feel, you know? And so I always try to approach it like that because look, we're having these conversations. I mean, we're going out on Tuesday morning and riding and everybody's talking about this stuff, you know, especially in my group where guys are buying stuff all the time and they're always willing to try the latest and greatest gear. It's really cool. And I think it's one of the fun parts about cycling. You know, it's an expensive hobby. I always say like, it's not as expensive as cars, but it's probably a close second. And, you know, there's just like an endless amount of cool little gear that just gives you like tiny little marginal gains along the way. And yeah, I always geek out on that stuff. So
it's so cool.
Hey, as we kind of wrap up into this ending, some advice from Chris. I want to start off with this. This is cool. He wrote in the notes, he says, if I'm not saying hell yeah, then I'm saying no. It's a phrase that I live by. Maybe start there with your advice. What does that mean? Where'd that come from?
Well, dude, you know, again, like I'm super, super protective of my time. And if you guys were down here and we rode on a regular basis, you'd see there are just some days that I just don't ride. And it's not because, you know, not because I'm not feeling it or whatever. It's like, there are some times that I kind of measure things against like, okay, if I do this, it takes away from like time with my kids and my family. And you guys know this from having kids that, you know, my daughter who is 5 and like wants to set up a little coffee shop or a little diner and set up all her little bears and have a tea party. Dude, she's 5 and she's going to want to do that for another few months. And then she's going to move on to something else. And I need to take advantage of those times. And I need to make sure that I'm here for that, because if I'm not, dude, she's going to be 6 and she's not going to want to do that anymore. And I miss that window and I can never get that time back. And so for me, whether it's, dude, you name it, whether it's work stuff, whether it's bike stuff, whether it's like, you know, stuff in the community, responsibilities, like, dude, I say no to a lot of stuff. And it's always against that measurement or that measuring stick of my family, because I don't think it's fair to take time away from my wife and my family to do things that aren't really worthwhile or that can be handled in a more efficient way. And so I say no to a lot of lunch meetings. I say no to a lot of phone calls where somebody may just want to like chat about something. Like I just don't do it. And sometimes it comes across maybe as a little bit rude, but you know, it allows me to fit, call it LOTOJA training, work, life, hanging out with my family. Like it allows me to do the things that I want to do. And so, yeah, I kind of say like, dude, if I'm not really, really excited about something, I'm just saying no to that thing. And it's worked well so far. And it's allowed me to spend more time with my family and my kids. And that's really what's important at the end of the day to me.
Nice. That's
so
tough.
good.
It's hard sometimes.
Yeah. Very
cool. Hey, you've been exposed to a lot of, me and you and Jake, we're just surrounded by whatever, cyclists, as weird as it gets. If you're going to give advice to someone, maybe they're starting or they're looking to you as a mentor, where do you start? Where do you start that advice to get them? Where are you telling them to get the most out of this sport?
I would say find a group that you can ride bikes with. You know, riding bikes solo is fun. If you just want to get some exercise, that's great. But finding a group who you can connect with and spend time with, and you know, like I talked about, our group's like phenomenal. It doesn't have to be our group. You know, it just kind of works well for my interests and my lifestyle. But I think finding a group, you know, when it comes to buying a bike, I think just start used. I'm a huge advocate for buying used bikes. You don't have to break the bank to get into the sport. I mean, no one needs to go spend $10,000 or $12,000 on a bike. That's just absurd. And if you're somebody who's new in the sport, dude, go spend a few $100 and like get a bike and see if you like it, because you can try it. And if you don't like it, you could probably resell it for about what you paid for it. And if you lose a little bit of money, like, oh, well, you know, it's what you would have spent on a gym membership for a month or something.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I'm a fan of like kind of starting small and then scaling it as you go. And so, you know, don't get caught up in having to get all the latest and greatest stuff, all the newest stuff. Just find the discipline that works for you and that your friends are going to do. So whether that's your buddies are riding road or they're riding gravel or they're riding mountain bikes, you know, if that's what they're doing, maybe borrow a bike from them, maybe go find one that's inexpensive and just enjoy it. And it's a sport that I think probably is one of the most fun sports on the planet. It's just a total blast.
You even suggested a rental in a video I watched. Yeah. Rent that gravel bike. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think the shop down the street charges like $100 to rent a bike for a day. So if you want to try a Crux, you can rent a Crux for $100 a day. And if you end up buying the bike there, I think they apply that towards the purchase of the bike. I don't know many shops that will just let you like take a bike these days. I think back in the day, maybe you could, but I think that's a great way to try a bike as well. Yeah. Totally worthwhile.
Nice. Jake, questions?
I want to ask the same question that Stu asked me on my podcast. Looking back, Chris, to 21-year-old Chris, what advice would you give him?
So I had kind of this same thought, and I asked myself this same question when I turned 30, and I was kind of like looking at a career change, and I was looking at, making some changes in my life. And I asked myself, like, if I could go back in time, like what would 20-year-old Chris, what would I tell 20-year-old Chris, which moves should you make along the way? What would you change? And I think the number one thing is just to kind of follow your gut. I think we inevitably have, an instinct that tells us, kind of where we need to go and what we need to do. And I think sometimes it's really hard to follow that. So for me, in that case, it was, starting a small business and not working for someone else, and, taking that risk. It could be a place to move, whatever it might be. But I think, following your gut instinct, doing what you feel like is right, and not worrying about what anybody else thinks. At the end of the day, like, it doesn't really matter, right? What matters is, what you're doing, what your little family or your circle's doing. And outside of that, it's, kind of do what you want. So follow your gut, follow your heart. I know that sounds cheesy, but, take those risks. I think that they're absolutely worthwhile. And I think, as I realized this year, like, life is very short. And so, enjoy the time that you have and do the things that you want to do, within some certain parameters. And I think, I think it's worthwhile.
So
Nice.
good. So good.
Chris, I was constantly amazed this summer at the volume of your training.
Yeah.
I mean, it was incredible. There were some days where I was like, holy cow.
Well, you can blame Shane for that, because
I can't.
You can blame Shane for that, because I would just want to go out and do like a normal day, and then Shane would do like 2-a-days.
Okay.
And like, this is great. Like now I have to go out and do another ride at lunch because this guy has already done 2 rides.
Well, you don't have to spill the secrets, but I want to know, is there a method here to how you guys are training?
No, I think it's no. I mean, the trainer helps a ton. That's been really good. Like during the summer, I was on the trainer typically Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays for between 60 and 90 minutes. And then on Tuesdays, we would do Coffee Crew. You guys know Coffee Crew. It's like most fun ride around here. We would do Coffee Crew, and that was, 30 miles, but then we would add like what we called the Doom Loop as we got, later into the year, which was like an additional 2 laps up Newport Coast, which gives us like another 2,000 feet of climbing, again, because we have to compete against you guys who are just up and down immigration all year. And so really you guys are to blame, but we would just do like really early morning rides. And sometimes we'd roll out of the house at 4:45, 5 in the morning.
Yep.
Because that's what worked. And then Saturdays were typically 100 miles or so. But I'll tell you what, like my wife will tell you this. There are probably only, 5 or 6 Saturdays out of all summer that I was home after like 10:30 a.m. because we would go out super, super early. And that's, again, like talking about time, that's something that I'm hypersensitive about is,
nice.
Getting back before things are, it's a stress on the family. And so if the night before my wife's like, yeah, it'd be great if you could be back by 11, dude, I'll be back at 10:30, just to kind of like over promise, or sorry, over deliver there. And, it seems to work. And every year after LOTOJA, as we're driving home, just kind of like a quiet moment, I say, hey, so, what did you think of my training load this year, as we would call it? And I always kind of like pause and just kind of like wait, but so far, like every year she's been like, this year like wasn't that bad,
Like,
so
you're an idiot. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, you just can't.
Sorry, go ahead, Jake.
No, go ahead.
If you look on Strava and you look at like the amount of time that you've spent on the bike, like it's kind of foolish, really. Like I looked this morning and it's like well over 400 hours, which averages out to be about 7 hours a week, which doesn't sound that crazy. But when I look at 400 hours, I'm like, wow, that's a lot of time. Like, and that's why after LOTOJA, I have to pump the brakes quite a bit because it's like, dude, I spent 400 hours on the bike, which is awesome. But like, there are probably some other things that I should devote 400 hours to, you know? So
I know I always joke around with Kristen. We used to have like CrossFitter friends, and they would do like mobility, gymnastics, then they do the Metcon, and then the endurance. And and it was like 2 hours, right? At the gym. I'd be like, what an idiot. 2 hours at the gym?
Right. It's so crazy.
And I'm like, 2 hours. I'm like, that ride sucks. I'm like, it's got to be at least 3.
Exactly. It's got to be 3 or it doesn't really count, especially on the weekends.
Hey, let's wrap up. We good?
We're good.
It's
man.
great.
This is fun.
Chris, you're the man. Hey, as we wrap up here, I wanted to just express how grateful I am for not only the team, for Jake, for Chris, but I've reflected a lot on some of the people that I associate with, that get my time. Like as my kids get older and like I move into, like Chris says, so many people want a piece of your day. I am just grateful for not only the time we spent together, but just I am with Chris. I'm with Jake. I have this perspective that the real fun of this activity is in the journey, like the things that we get to do that build up to the event. And whatever, if I get a flat outside Montpelier, or I don't even know, just kidding, I got one in Mink Creek, it doesn't matter. It was an incredible journey to get there. And I look at that and this like that, like it's just super grateful for you guys and everybody that is part of this cool experience together. So,
hey man, dude, right back at you. And I think I speak for the whole team that we love you guys. You guys are a sister team. You guys are like brothers, and there's a special bond here. So I appreciate you guys.
What's 2023, Chris? Rodeo, what do you got? What's going on?
Crusher.
You got it mapped out? Oh, he's going to need more gearing for Crusher,
I don't know if
bro.
I'm saying hell yeah to Crusher.
You don't want to stay in Beaver, Utah? It's beautiful.
He's got a van, dude. He's okay.
Oh, that's true.
I don't know. I mean, when I set out to plan 2022, it was like, all right, we got your camp, right? Which is on the calendar for 2023. My camp, we got LOTOJA, and I think I'll do rodeo again because I think rodeo was a total blast. I guess we're doing that France thing, which still doesn't seem quite real to me.
Yes.
So that's kind of probably like the big thing that's on the calendar that we're really excited about. And that's like, I'm half excited to like go ride in Europe, but I'm also like equally excited to go like, take photos and film and create like daily vlogs, like all those things that I've wanted to do like forever. So yeah, that's going to be a big one. I'm excited.
Money.
So good.
Jake, have you mapped it out yet? What do you got? You ready to commit?
Commit to France or what?
I don't know anything. 2023.
Like I don't know. I haven't even taken a look at 2023 yet, but the France thing is on my radar for sure. I've just I'm in the last little stages trying to massage the wife with it, but no, that is definitely a trip that's on the radar for me. Obviously, LOTOJA is always in the picture for me. I think Crusher for sure. I'll be back for Crusher. I had a great experience there, but no, I think for me, it's all about experiences in the journey, like you talked about, Stu, and spending time with those you love. And, I love being a part of and riding with TBD. I love riding with you, Stu. I think that's how I set my goals every year, as I talked about. And, that's how it goes. So
Money.
Dude, we'd love to have you in France, man. It'd be really fun.
So good, man. Be so cool.
If not, just come down to California, like, the week before and the week after, or just plan an extra trip down here to the villas. The room's already reserved for you guys. So
nice. For those in Newport, you've got to ride with TBD. Seriously, you've got to link up with these guys and ride with them. It's an absolute blast and hammer fest for sure. So,
dude, there was a time like after LOTOJA where we had a Duole guy like every week.
I remember.
And it was amazing. Like I was like waiting for the next guy, and then I don't know what happened. The weather's getting bad. It's like still kind of decent out here. If you guys consider like the 50s okay, like it's still really nice out here. So please come out.
50s is beautiful.
I don't know. I disagree.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks,
Love you,
Jake.
man.